Open and Affirming, ONA, is a designation in the United Church of Christ that indicates a congregation welcomes into full life and ministry of the church persons of all sexual orientations, gender identities, and gender expressions. Each congregation individually chooses whether or not to become open and affirming. These discussions of justice, theology, love, and acceptance can be both blessed and painful. An ONA process can also dramatically affect a church's future and culture.
When I started coming to this church, it was mostly older folks who had lived in the neighborhood for a long time. It was not an open and affirming church at that time. It was, and the church had actually considered an open and affirming statement under a previous minister and did not pass it. And it was a divisive conversation, and people were really afraid to approach it again. I was a student at MIT. There was an event where somebody was going to talk about ex-gay therapy. Among other things, I said, well, there are lots of churches that welcome gay and lesbian people. So I put together a list and was kind of dismayed that this church that I was going to was not on the list. I couldn't actually put it there. I wasn't out to the church yet at this point. At that time, Dick and Barbara Huber were both on the diaconate, and I was really anxious about how they were going to respond to this, because they were the old stalwarts, the pillars of the church, and he was supportive of the idea. He said, and it was such a revelation. It was not what I was expecting. I was expecting that to be a fight, and in fact, he was ready to welcome gay and lesbian people to the congregation. So when we passed the open and affirming statement, that was not the end of the story. In particular, I recall some of the folks at church at that time saying, well, we don't want to fly a rainbow flag. That's too much. That would, and we don't want to become a gay church. We don't want to become a...
I saw the flag, the rainbow flag, and it immediately attracted me to the community. And when I finally came in and started attending and learned about the ONA, it told me that this was a place that I could find a connection.
In a way, it's interesting. It's not a thing where it's like, yay, I'm queer and I can be gay here at this church. It's more like just being me.
It feels like having been open and affirming this long is a commitment to accepting everyone in their wholeness. And I said, well, I had felt like I wasn't accepted as my whole self in other congregations. And so having that put in front of me made me stick around.
I do not speak for all gay people, but I can speak for myself, and I could say that it mattered to me that First Church become an open and affirming church.
Being in a space that was open and affirming, particularly one that was really truly affirming and not just, trying to be, just said that they were, was really, really important as I sort of wrestled with my own coming out, my own internal coming out, and then knowing that when I came out more publicly, I would be somewhere where my church community had my back, and where I could look to the left or the right in the pews or behind me, in front of me, and all of those people were here for me, and none of them were going to tell me that I was wrong or that God didn't love me or that there was something going on that shouldn't be.
Being a part of an open and affirming congregation is in part about a critical mass of other groups of families that don't all look the same. So for my family, it is such a breath of fresh air and a freedom to be able to be in a space where families look different so that we don't stick out. We aren't the one queer family in the congregation. We are a family, just like all of the other families, beautiful in its diversity. And I feel like in this particular place, this particular open and affirming congregation, the critical mass of queer people gives us the freedom to be ourselves.
I don't know, I see a lot of peers my age who grew up in other faith traditions, who have had things that they've had to unlearn, and things that ended up being really painful for those of them who are members of the LGBTQ community.
Are we doing what we're supposed to be doing? Is this safe? And you know what? Christianity, for us, doesn't always mean we're safe. We do what is right. And sometimes we have to do the right thing in spite of the danger.
First Church Somerville could be on the edge of doing the theological and biblical work around that welcome. Not just saying everybody's welcome, but saying these are the biblical reasons why, these are the theological reasons why we imagine a church that includes people of varying relationship styles.
25 years after officially becoming open and affirming, First Church Somerville is still authentically welcoming to all. Only God knows what blessings the future will hold.